this right on? Okay. And for the thousands watching on TV today. Sorry for the tardiness. Good afternoon and welcome to the June 26, 2025 Audit and Finance Committee meeting. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of Treaty 4 territory, a treaty signed with 35 First Nations across southern Saskatchewan and all parts of Alberta, Manitoba, original lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. The City of Regina owns its strength and vibrancy through these lands and the diverse Indigenous people whose ancestry's footsteps have marked this territory, as well as the settlers from around the world who continue to be welcomed here and call Regina home. Some members of the community, I think there's a lot out there, may be watching, attending the meeting through video conferencing. I would like to remind all those individuals of the following. Please ensure that your radio cameras your video cameras and microphones are turned off. If a member of the committee wishes to speak, use the raise hand function and be placed into the speaking queue. When speaking, remember to unmute your microphone and enable your video cameras. All votes will be conducted with the recorded votes. The deadline to register for a delegation for the reporting or recommended for the consideration by council or city council of this meeting schedule for July 30th is 12 p.m. on Monday, July 28th. Can I have someone move a motion to approve the agenda at the call of the chair? Jamie? Any questions? Any opposed? Okay, carried. Adoption of the minutes. Can I have someone move a motion to adopt the minutes of the public meeting held May 22nd, 2025? Mayor Chad Baczynski? Any errors and omissions? None. Any opposed? Thank you. Administration reports. We will now consider items AFC 25-11, 2025 first quarter forecast. Can I ask the CFO and Deputy City Manager Darren Anderson to please introduce the report?
Thank you, and through the chair. Administration is before the ANF committee today to share the first quarter forecast for the City of Regina for the general operating and general utility funds. This report also includes supplemental information on the general utility reserve and the general fund reserve and overtime costs. The 2025 first quarter forecast projects a 1.5% or 9.9 million deficit in the operating fund and a deficit of 0.4 million in the general utility fund. Please note that we are still early in the year and this forecast is a snapshot in time and subject to change. I submit the report for your review and now open it up to questions.
Thank you. Can I have someone move the report? Councillor Mancinelli? Any questions from the members of the report?
First of all, I really appreciate the report. After asking for it and receiving it, you know, I really do value the information. Trying to understand where things are midway through coming up to a budget is valuable information for me. And also kind of how things came through and where their spends are so they're not a surprise is kind of a point in time. I noticed the variances are all single digit, if not below 1%, kind of the exception being tourism. But if I remember right, council okayed an extra spend in tourism as well. So it's information we're all aware of. So that whole transparency and line of sight coming through here is what I was kind of thinking would be nice for future organization. And I think you guys did a really good job. Thanks for the info. I'll let it go for there. I'll see if anyone else has any questions or comments.
Thank you.
Think if I want to ask the question or not.
Councillor, please.
Hey, thank you. Through you, Chair. I'm echoing comments from Jason. I just wanted, can I ask Jason a question? Oh, since you were here before, buddy, is this variance similar to quarter ones in past years? In terms of percent or dollar amount, somewhere in there?
Part of the problem in the past was the timeliness of the report when we got the information compared to when we were reviewing it. The tightness of variance, I don't think was broken down as far as it is right here either, if memory serves me correctly. And no, overall, there was never a large variance on budgets. They're always tight on the overall. It was always coming through budget, and when we were getting the amount and then having hard budget discussions and coming back to this, I think is where the stopgap came, if I'm not mistaken. Kim would remember as well.
Right.
Through the
Or
chair.
Darren, sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah,
direct.
This is only our second year with a first quarter forecast. Typically, we would be reporting mid-year and Q3, just before budget. So I would say we don't have a typical standard at this time. Going forward, we might be able to align that a little better.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
If I could, I guess that was the thing is we never received a variance report. When we did, it was stale dated and not ahead of budget times. It was usually imminent when it was coming.
Yeah.
And there again, the amounts weren't quite as well denoted as they are here from the last version we got, if I'm not mistaken.
Through the chair, we did make some adjustments to the report, the way it's structured, to align it more similarly to the City of Winnipeg in the last fiscal year in 2024. So it's much more detailed, I would say, than in prior years.
Okay, thank you.
And I will say through the chair too, the timing did get delayed this year because we had the 1.55 million that sort of said, well, how can I do the forecast till we know that stuff? So hopefully in future years, this will come even earlier. And same with next quarter, like don't expect this much of a time delay. Yeah. Now the budget's finalized.
When you got a design?
Acting City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add one further thing for context, and I think we touched on this last meeting. Mr. Anderson is here now with his new team, and I think part of what you're seeing is that we've got new leadership at the helm. I think the reports that are coming to ANF are much more crisp, succinct, and understandable, and so I think it's just indicative of Darren's leadership and the strength of his team, and I think this is what you're going to see is what you're going to get, and one of our imperatives is to get this information to you in a timely fashion.
Thank you very much. I want to say a good segue to my comment to get this report in place. Now, I know it takes, with the systems that we have in place, that it takes a lot of effort. Thank you very much for putting it together. As far as the report goes, like it's Q1, I don't think there's a huge red flag to be noted at this point, but I'm going to ask administration, specifically when we're going into 2026, 27 budgeting, is to make sure you include the tools that you need to make sure that this thing is faster and more seamless for your perspective to put these together. So once again, I think we've talked about this many times to make sure you include what you need to do for your tools to make sure this is transitioning and these reports come off smoother. Thank you. Is there any other questions from the members? Nope. If there are no more questions or discussions, I will ask the clerk to call the vote. Oh, sorry. Mr. Mancinelli, do you want to close?
I don't know if this is proper to ask. Just that point 2 about the variance report under the wastewater environment, unanticipated wastewater treatment costs. I'm wondering what those were, but is that too detailed? Like the fact you report on it and we got it in front of me is proper, and I think that's proper for audit and finance. If I ask about that, is that germane to the meeting we're having right now?
Can you point me to exactly where?
Oh,
where you're
Appendix B3 on the 2025, notes on variances tied to Appendices B2. Variances reported greater than 100,000.
Yep.
Unanticipated wastewater treatment costs in February. I'm wondering what incurred those costs for wastewater treatment? What happened that something spiked the water? But I don't know if that's germane to the meeting we're having, so I'm kind of thinking I'm off base.
So through the chair, yeah, that's a good question. Unfortunately, we don't have the answer. We'll get it to you in a briefing note.
Okay.
After. We'll follow up with Curtis. I just don't remember what happened in February right
Thank
now.
you. Yeah. Like I said, I didn't think it was pertinent for how we're financing things, so sorry about that.
Councilor Mancinelli, do you wish to close? Okay, thank you. I will ask the clerk to call the vote.
Councillor Mancinelli,
In favor?
Jamie Ang,
In favor.
Mayor Baczynski,
In favor.
Councillor Seclise,
In favor.
Rob Willman,
In favor.
and yourself, Mr. Chair.
In favor.
The motion carries.
Thank you. We will now consider item AFC 25-12 2025 first quarter capital expenditure report. Can I ask the CFO and Deputy City Manager Darren Anderson to please introduce the report?
Thank you, and through the chair. On April 9th, 2024, the Audit and Finance Committee in report AFC 24-12 Capital Project and Reserve Funding recommended that City Council direct administration to include in its future annual capital projects, drop projects, capital carry forward projects, and status on the percentage of completion of each project. As part of the City of Regina's financial plan, the city sets the capital and operating budgets each year and takes into consideration service level agreements to maintain service standards and community priorities. The 5-year capital plan outlines where the money will be collected and spent in line with the city's priorities according to the vision, mission, values, and long-term financial and strategic plan. In 2025 first quarter, a total of $381 $0.9 million was available for general fund capital projects, and $293.1 million was available for utility fund capital projects, providing a grand total of $675 million. As of March 2025, the total expenditure for general fund capital projects was $5 million, 1.3% of available, while that of the utility fund capital projects was $9.7 million, 3.3% of available utility fund. Combined total expenditure was $14.7 million, or 2.2% of the grand total of available funds for capital projects in 2025. We submit this report for your review, and we're open to questions.
Thank you. Can I have someone move the report? Mayor Brzezinski? Does anyone have any questions on the report? Or, Mayor, would you like to speak to the report?
Nope.
Does anyone have any questions on the report? Councillor Mancinelli.
Thank you. So the capital projects with a negative capital carry forward, or negative capital carry forward, like the food and beverage services for the $4 million, is that amount just carried forward into eternity? Is it written off, amortized? Like, what happens with that going from here on in? How do we clean up our books?
Thank you, and through the chair. So we're currently working on a capital governance policy that's going to deal with exactly how we do this. Right now, it's done different ways depending on whether we're waiting for something, like are we waiting for funding, or is it just there negative forever? How do we clean it up? Do we get funding some other way to clear it out? And so we don't have a strict policy on that right now, and so we're working on that and bringing it forward. Sorry, Ms. Callender, when's that report due to council? Do we remember? Sometime in the fall. So we're still working on that process. I know the team has done a lot of work on it, on all the moving parts, but I don't have a great answer for you today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Just as a follow-up, one that I've been kind of aware of would be that Catalyst Pathway project. Was there actually any investments in the Catalyst Pathway? What does that $100,000 represent in work done, or how are we investing in that pathway?
So through the chair, specific to that project, we did have council use some of that funding for the Globe, which we identified at year end. And so we're currently working on a plan to come back on how to replenish that, as well as what the next steps are. We believe there's about $3 million committed currently from council towards that project. We just had the team come to executive to outline where they're at with the project, and we should have something coming forward.
Okay. So just so I understand that properly, that Catalyst Pathway is actually a $3 million project in all told?
Through the chair, I believe it's more than that. That's what we believe has been already approved from council previously. Then we borrowed 1.9 million from that to give to the Globe in 2024. So we need to replenish the 1.9, and then we are just doing the plans for what that first $3 million tranche will be.
I got
so
it.
lots of moving parts there.
All the bricks are falling, and that's why I had to ask. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you very much. Question that I have about that pathway specifically, and this may be project related and maybe not geared towards this, but we do have a few moving parts that are happening in that area. And the question is from administration, is this the right project at the right time and the right location due to the fact that we're doing more construction? So I'm going to we're not going to be able to answer that question here, but could we take that away and have that as a discussion point for next time to say, did we get the right stakeholders? Are we putting this thing on the right place at the right time in the right location? My personal thoughts, it's wrong location. Put it that way, wrong location.
Yeah, through the chair, we'll definitely do that. I'll make a note to talk to Ms. Bryden, and we'll make sure that we bring it forward at the next ANF to have some more concrete plans around all the timing. and where it's moving.
Yeah, and the biggest concern is like we're doing a nice or potential nice development on the other side of the track, so it's wrong location. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Through you, Chair, I just wanted to check with administration. Are you comfortable just undertaking that work, or do you require a motion with that direction to ensure that the intent is clear?
Through the chair, we should have a motion just to say you wanted an update at the next ANF, and that way I can put it on Miss Bryden's plate. But as long as we're sort of a memo briefing note style of update, I think we could commit to that.
Through you, Chair, it would be my recommendation that a motion be made by the committee. We are at a public meeting. The committee has asked for this information. The public may be very interested in this information as well too. So it would be appropriate for the information to come back in the form of a report to respond back to the committee on.
Give us 5 minutes, we'll start typing.
Through the chair, there is a motion on the floor that council receive and file this report. So Mayor Baczynski would need to withdraw the receive and file motion and put forward the second motion up here. It wouldn't be an amendment if he's amenable.
That is amenable. I withdraw.
Thank you. Yeah. Hey, thank you very much. The motion on the floor is that the administration report back to the Audit and Finance Committee on July 31st on ensuring that Catalyst Pathway project fits within the larger plan of the Taylor Field development work. I think that there's no questions or open up for questions at this point. And a seconder.
Yes, to the chair, Ms. Bryden's just going to come down and just chat if you guys have questions for her. I just want to make sure she's okay with this. It's her kind of
Sure,
area,
okay.
so
Yeah.
she'll be down soon.
Well, I need a seconder first, so. Mayor Baczynski?
Okay. Will it go right in?
Well, I think Councilor B's on the. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Hi, Ms. Bryden, thank you for joining us. And sorry for the very short notice, and it looks like you have your trench coat on to go outside in the downpour. So I have a motion on the floor, and it really comes down to project and project timing, and this is kind of through the ANF committee, is the Catalyst Pathway is, with developments that happened over the past quarter of directing administration to start working on the development of Taylor Field. The question is, does this project, what I'm talking about, the timing, the location, and the place, does this project still fit in with the grander plan with the development of Taylor Field? So it's a, not an answer here if you want to come back in a month to say, you know what, we want to re-look at this. Is this the right thing to do? We've got a rail to cross, we've got grade separation potentially, or we put it on the other side of the tracks. What makes sense at this point? And is that enough time?
Thank you, Chair. So it's good timing I was just actually looking for my information. I did just have an update on this project. So we engaged a consultant and worked with community about how this pathway should look. So we've gone through that process and designed the pathway with the Taylor Field, the IAF, all of those pieces included in the alignment. And so what I would also say is Right now, the pathway is identified as being in 3 different phases. And as we work through our capital budget, when those phases are actually developed will be dependent on available funding. The first phase of the project is connecting the PCC lands more to the downtown, so making that connection up Lawrence Street and just firming up that pathway, that connection in that section. And then the next section would be, from the downtown over towards, like through the Taylorfield lands and et cetera. And so all of that design work is taking into account anything that does occur on the Taylorfield lands or the IAF to incorporate the park space and the playgrounds, et cetera, around the IAF. So that work is all being considered together.
Okay, thank you. With the development though, that work was done in advance of, I'm gonna say the aquatic center, but if we develop that Taylor Field lands now as residential, does that change or have potential to change what this thing looks like?
So there is a certain section of the Taylorfield lands that we expect will be park space. So we're not going to build a pathway and then tear it up if that's the concern. So we're working collaboratively with the departments to make sure that we are aligning everything. And I would expect a lot of the IAF and a lot of those other pieces of that development in those areas will be developed before we build our pathway. We're not going to build, put in our front lawn before we dig our basement, so to speak.
100% understand that. And that's what I don't want. Like, I don't want a whole south of the tracks build and then we were going to say, you know what, we really should have been on the north side of the tracks.
So the pathway as identified, like the catalyst pathway is actually identified as a loop, and it is north of the tracks.
So are you okay with this motion if we just come back to council and say?
So I think we could provide like a memo, and I think a lot of the conversation with council can occur actually through the budget process because that pathway will be in the capital budget. And as I said, it'll be phased out and funding as funding allows because they're currently, I don't know where it'll land in terms of the priority list of other capital infrastructure that's needed for the city.
Okay, so this will be presented regardless at this point.
That's correct.
Okay. Which begs the question, do we still need the motion or withdraw? Yeah. Withdraw? Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming and explaining that it's already underway. So from a technicality perspective, I will withdraw this motion if the report is coming. Now we got to re-put on, okay, the mayor will re-put on the report, AFC 25-12. So we will reconsider AFC 25-12? No. It's back on the floor? Okay. Okay. Well, the report is back on the floor, AFC 25-12. Is there any further questions on the report? Mayor, do you wish to close the report? Okay. Thank you very much. I will ask the clerk to call the vote. Oh, sorry. Thank you. I will ask clerk to call the vote.
Mayor Baczynski,
In favor.
Councillor Slicklease,
In favor.
Rob Williman,
In favor.
Jamie Eng,
In favor.
and Councillor Mancinelli.
In favor.
And yourself, Mr. Chair.
In favor.
The motion carries.
Thank you. We will now consider AFC 25-13 audit recommendations status update. Can I ask the internal auditor Danaker, to please introduce the report?
Good evening, members of the committee. This report provides the Audit and Finance Committee with a status of progress in implementing audit recommendations for audits completed till 2024. Administration has implemented 31 audit recommendations since the previous status update to the Audit and Finance Committee in September 2024. As of April 15, 2025, 34 of the audit recommendations are complete and 22 are in progress. Of the 22 recommendations that are in progress, 13 are more than a year overdue. The current completion rate is at around 60%. A majority of the overdue recommendations, 15 of the 22 overdue ones, arise from the inventory audit that was completed and reported in 2023. Implementation of an overarching policy and procedure for the inventory management was pivotal to the implementation of most audit recommendations in the report. This policy was implemented in February 2025. With this, we should be able to see more recommendations being implemented in the next half year. Administration tracks the status of outstanding internal audit recommendations and provides an update to the executive leadership team twice a year. Internal audit will continue to support city departments in their efforts to implement audit action plans in a timely manner. The status of all outstanding recommendations from audits completed up till 2025 will be reported to the Audit and Finance Committee in Q1 2026. With that, we open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any question for the members? What's up? Oh, can I ask someone to move the report? Councillor, please. Second, Councillor. Okay, sir, 1 second. Okay, do you wish to speak to the report? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dina. Great work. I wanted to ask you, if it's appropriate at this point, how the hires are coming along. You know, the kinds of feedback you've had, numbers of resumes, and where we're at with that for the 2 internal audit support people.
So to answer to that, as we initially talked about, you know, it is proving to be difficult to get the required expertise and qualifications to fill the positions. But we did have a few interviews going on in the month of June. So there'll be further conversations on that in the month of July. And I still am hopeful to meet the September 2025 target to get those positions filled in.
Okay. Thank you for that, and good luck. Let us know if there's anything we can do. If you want to resubmit on social media, we can all help you with that. We have some reach. I'm wondering whether or not, I guess that it's not an easy way to say this, but you know, if I have a problem with a particular program that we have, and I think there's a financial problem with it, is this the place to bring it up in terms of asking for an investigation, or not? And I can be more specific if we need to be.
Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Through the chairs, yeah, if we were going to speak to something specific, I would ask that we go on camera and get some legal advice.
Okay,
If you were
that's a
talking
good
about something
idea.
specific, if it's more in general terms of process around how we decide what audit does, then that, we could have that conversation, but.
Okay. I prefer to go in camera, but let's wait till everyone else asks all their questions first. I think it would be better, okay? Wouldn't you think? And then I can do that at the end, closing. Would that be all right?
Sure.
Okay.
Councillor Mancinelli?
Appreciate the report. Really like the little table, and even more than the table, I appreciate the explanation for context. When I look at the table, I think someone in Central Stores needs to have a butt kick, and then I read the context and I understand what's going on, so it really helps out. I need a bit more context as I go through this. Yeah. I kind of stumbled to the end of the last report. For me, this is a good example. We've made an investment. We've done an audit through this area. You know, everything's kind of got a timeline. We figured out some KPIs, some new process, and then it all comes down to that whole thing about efficiencies dependent on prioritization of basically it sounds like a computer program once again that you have to spend money on sometime between 26 and 27 if available. And we all know funds are always tight, so that might not be available. And some of the controversy about this whole committee was how much information do we need to be effective? What I kind of want to know in that report before this is where this problem appears in that report, on which line of system implementation ongoing it might be, to understand where we're stumbling through this and where we have to bolster and help to make sure we get to that next level of efficiency. I think that's the information that needs to be tied within this committee. I didn't know whether to ask it at the end of the last piece in here or whether to tie it in this way. That's why I kind of fumbled back and forth, but how would I achieve that, and how does that look in that previous report with all the line items? Through the chair.
So through the chair, so just sorry to clarify, this is on the inventory system?
Yeah, on inventory controls, it kind of says that only part of the procedures were implemented. They had some staffing changes, they had some process changes, and more will be done. And then it kind of goes on to except for 6, they're related to process automation, relying on upgrades to the accounting and warehouse management systems. So back to a computer solution, and then I'm expecting to see my computer solution somewhere in that above table so I can kind of go through it with you guys to know where we're at implementation or how that looks in the variance and how well implemented that is for how we're achieving that. So if you could tie that all together. Sorry guys, I know it's long-winded.
Thank you. So yeah, through the chair, I'll take a stab and then if you want some more details, Ms. Kralik can help. Right now, we're at the stage of, so we've hired a consultant to look at different options for that software. It's sort of end of life. And so we're at the stage where we're going to be issuing an RFP. And then it would be a multi-year project that encompasses a lot of things. So it encompasses sort of our asset management and inventory all at the same time. It's software that does both. So that's the big picture. I'll let Ms. Kralik speak to specifically around how it'll improve our inventory controls.
Through the chair, essentially, we do have multiple areas where inventory is tracked. WAM/WAX, the one that we currently are going out to tender for consultant, is one of them. We also have an M5 system. And as we're going through the EBS upgrade, we are looking for synergies between both the WAM/WAX and the EBS in order to kind of streamline and maybe consolidate some of our systems. There will be better controls. WAM is definitely outdated, end of life, on life support. So we do need a solution. And so it is really looking at consolidating and gaining some efficiencies and building in what we need into the system in order to manage those inventories and look at integrations with EBS at the same time. Some of that is lacking, and some of the areas of WAM that we could be leveraging right now we're not, but I think there wasn't a good understanding of the prior system. So as we move forward into the new system, we'll be looking at both inventory and asset management as a whole in conjunction with our EBS upgrade, if that makes sense.
Through the chair, a follow-up question. Previously, we talked about that catalyst pathway. We talked about the spends going into the budget cycle. This system upgrade and these efficiencies, will this be part of the budget cycle too? The spending we need to do as a council and as an organization, that gets worked into it at that discussion as well? It doesn't just kind of get put on the back burner because it's not popular for seeing it by residents, but we'll make it part of it.
So, through the chair, just to clarify, you're asking on the budget side, forecast side, are we looking at as well?
You're going to get the price together, and it might be huge or huger than you expect. Does that hit council for budget, or do we just kind of push it off to the side because it's not going to be agreeable? Do we follow through with it?
So, through the chair, we also have a budget forecast system that we're currently in the process of upgrading as well in conjunction with. And we will need to be asking you for additional money at the end of the day. I guess we'll be coming with business cases if that's what you're asking.
Yeah. I didn't know if the capital case for this had been made in previous years because it was always ongoing, or if there's a future capital case, or if there's going to be a stall point, or what.
We currently have some carry forward because the project was delayed. Initially, it was approved actually even before I came to the city 2.5 years ago. So we're making significant progress. We have a project manager now who's overseeing our financial systems projects. And we are currently working on business cases to ensure that we're properly resourced and coming to you with the priorities for the financial system to get council's audit and finance's blessing and council's blessing on those items.
It's great to hear. I kind of thought that some of that previously invested money didn't come to fruition. So to see how that cleans up and go forward, I appreciate the information. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Mancinelli. The one question, or I'm going to say questions that I have pertaining around the system, the disposition of material. And, you know, when an inventory system, we're going to have, I imagine, in a complex machine like this, you're going to have consumables, you're going to have stuff like sand, salt, stuff like that, but there's a big ticket value to it that we just consume. And then there's going to be very expensive parts for very expensive pieces of componentry, which eventually we get obsolete, we have to write off. So the question is really that we have original due dates that were, you know, Q3 or Q4 of 2023. Part of it is review stock and determine whether parts are obsolete. To me, that's not an audit. That's not a auditor's position to do. That is the people in stores to do. And the question really comes at this point is this work getting done? And are you finding this work getting done? Because this is a simple, show me your procedure and your policy. Did you create one, yes or no? And you've had from 2023 to do this. So the question is this work getting done with the people that we have?
So when we initially performed this audit in 2023, there were no inventory management policies and procedures in place. There was no standardized procedures to even address, you know, how to identify obsolescence, or a centralized procedure instructing departments how to go about doing that, when to do it, and when to report back centrally to the finance team. So with the policy work that was done, what we did was we benchmarked our policy. We created a draft policy. We tried to benchmark it with other cities. And we also work with the department, because every department is unique. Like you said, we have departments that have inventory like gravel, cement, sand, and we have other department which has you know, parts, component parts for vehicles, you know, transmissions, engines, and other, you know, replaceable batteries and everything. So every department is unique. So we work with those departments to create an overarching inventory policy for the city. And it's the first time we are creating that policy for the city. This work was done in February 2025. So the subsequent SOPs on how to identify obsolete materials, how to classify them, that will happen later this year. And we are kind of aiming to finish them by end of this year. That is where it stands now.
I have some follow-up questions after this, but we have a very short time window with our solicitor, so we're going to go in camera right now, if that's okay with everyone. Councillor Siklis, can you explain why we need to go in camera?
Yes, it's to receive some confidential information with respect to the electric buses.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for coming back. The committee received information in camera about electric buses. No decisions were undertaken at that time. No. So I still have a question pertaining to the, I'm going to say, let's call it stores management. Okay. From a storage management perspective, this is my comment first. There's a few of us that came around from industry. There's some really good, qualified, competent people for storage management. Storage or stores management, of course, is a lot of money tied up in inventory. So we recognize that we need to do a better job. The question is, from an audit perspective, you're auditing to a policy. The policy is not created. And the question is, from administration, this is ongoing from 2023 identified, presuming this never happened before. Now there's a lot of new people around the table. That why was this not done in the past up until, like, we're talking about 2023, we're doing it now. Keeping in mind, a lot of us are new at this table, including the CFO, so we're not going to ask you specific questions about the past. But the question is, do you have the resources to help expedite this process now? If you don't have the resources, can you get subcontractors to help out with this resource? Because there is several millions of dollars in inventory that could be out there that is accounted for, not needed, or not accounted for, and we don't know where it is. So do you have people that you need to get this in place sooner than later?
Yes, so thanks for the question through the chair. Yeah, I mean, we've done a lot of work on this. So the policy is one thing. We also had some accounting and reconciliation stuff that needed to get cleaned up, and we did a lot of work on that in 2024. And so we've sort of cleaned all that up and have worked with our partners across. So stores is one area where we have inventory, but fire has inventory, police has inventory. And so we rely on staff throughout the city and our partners sort of across the organization to ensure that when they use inventory, they tell us. And so right now we've sort of gone as far as we can, and we're going to keep implementing the new policy, but the next big tranche will come with the IT project. And so when that IT project comes, it will increase our control environment as well, so that we have automatic loads into our system, like that kind of stuff from a control perspective. So I would say that that's probably our next big kick, and we're going to be coming back to council at some point with a cost and an ask to fund that project.
Thank you very much. For a follow-up to that, I'm going to just say that it's very imperative. Imagine an organization of this size and this magnitude probably has between $30 to $60 million of inventory sitting right now that we need to ensure we get a really good handle on to make sure we are going down the right path. Mins, maxes, everything else, and you have the correct people in place.
Yeah, so through the chair, like we're very aware of the value we have in inventory, and we're doing regular counts, we're doing monthly reconciliations, checking them, making sure they're being done on a timely basis so that we don't have this discrepancy. Like I said, the big change in control environment, we'll move away from some more of the manual processes that we have now and implement more automated controls that will help. So the next time that the internal auditor comes through, hopefully we'll have a lot less items and holes in our control environment.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions from the committee? Would you like to close the report, or any more comments? Okay. If there's no more comments and the mover has no more questions, I will ask the clerk to call the vote.
Mayor Baczynski.
In favor.
Councillor Staclease.
In favor.
Rob Willman.
In favor.
Jamie Ng.
In favor.
Councillor Mancinelli.
In favor.
And yourself, Mr. Chair.
In favor.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, we will now consider AFC 25-14 Internal Audit Work Plan. Can I ask the auditor, Internal Auditor Danikar, to please introduce the report?
The Internal Audit Charter requires the City Internal Auditor to prepare an annual audit plan for approval by the Audit and Finance Committee. This report presents the Internal Audit Annual Work Plan, which outlines the projects planned for the years 25 and 26 and potential audit projects beyond 2026 for the Audit and Finance Committee's approval. Projects included in the work plan are selected using independent risk assessments, using the best available information, financial significance, a review of municipal audit trends, themes from external reviews, inputs from the executive leadership team and the city's external auditor. For this audit year, 7 audits are planned. These include a non-standard procurement audit, operational technology risk assessment, budget process review, audit of granular inventory, cash control process audit for 3 departments, and also a comprehensive fraud awareness training across the city. For audits such as operational technology risk assessment, which requires specialized technical expertise, the audits will be performed through a combination of in-house and external resources. Further, Internal Audit has identified potential audit projects that may be performed in 2026 and beyond. These potential audit projects will remain dynamic and flexible to address emerging risks and issues. Internal Audit will bring forward separate work plans for approval to the Audit and Finance Committee every year prior to the commencement of each of these years. The work plan is structured around the availability of 4 auditors, which includes the 2 auditors who are provincially anticipated to be hired by September 2025. The plan will need to be adjusted if adequate resources are not available throughout the year. Internal Audit will provide periodic status update reports to the Audit and Finance Committee, including information on management's implementation of recommendations arising from these audits. With that, I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does there anyone have any questions? All right, sorry. A mover for the report. Mr. Ing? Do you wish to speak to the report? No. You're moving it. Do you wish to speak to the report? Okay. Questions? Mr. Manson or Councilor Mancinelli?
Sure. Thank you. Through the chair, appreciate the work plan and appreciate the work done by the auditor. Knowing we just got this up and running and kind of just dovetailing off of what I talked about just a moment ago with stores. So you audited that department. Yeah. You made a process. We came to the point where we talked about the software solution. Yeah. And now if we don't come up with that software solution in a timely fashion, your audit kind of stale dates and all the information you gathered and everything you did kind of goes to waste. Is that correct in a fashion?
Not really.
Okay.
The thing is, the main problem we had with the inventory audit is that many of the issues that were caused at that time were due to systems not talking with each other.
Okay.
We had different financial systems and a warehouse management system that didn't talk to each other. So even without the systems, it aids efficiency if we have the systems working to fix those issues. But even otherwise, we have workarounds like a manual reconciliation process to address it.
Okay. That was going to be my next question. With the anticipated extra staff and the extra audits you're going through, each audit is going to uncover its own measures to rectify any problems it has, and some of those might have investments. Are we going to end up spending extra staff dollars hiring extra auditors and then not have enough money to invest in the potential fixes we find? And if so, that information we uncover, is it going to become stale dated and wasted, is my worry going through my head.
So audit recommendations for the future time period, and they don't get stale dated because it was done a couple of years back. Most of the circumstances which cause those issues do tend to continue. So even if we didn't have a budget for the next couple of years, when the business case comes forward to implement them, there is a reassessment of whether it still makes sense to invest that money for fixing those issues. With inventory audit report, that will continue to exist till whenever we decide to implement it.
Okay, okay, yeah, I just didn't want to, I think the information's great, but like I said, I know all of it's going to come with an ask, and I didn't want to pay all my money for information and have none left over for having to fulfill some of the asks, so I was just making sure we could put it to balance. Oh.
Thanks.
Clark,
Through the
CFO
chair.
has got, thanks.
Just to answer from administration side as well. So to your point is bang on, right? Audits are a great tool for us to identify weaknesses in our control structure. Typically, to fix those, it requires resources. Sometimes it's resources we can reallocate within our existing, and sometimes it's new resources that are required. We will have to make that balance as a team between council and administration on whether we want to accept the risk of leaving the control open if we don't dedicate the resources to closing it. So it's administration's job then to come to council or A&F and say, we believe this to be a significant risk. Here's what we believe the cost will be to close that risk. And then as a team, we would decide, do we want to invest that cost and or live and be okay with the control being not as effective as it could be.
Yeah, roll the dice and see. Okay, thanks, and I appreciate the explanation.
Thank you. Mayor Bushinsky.
Thank you. I just wanted to see how because we have budgeting process in here as a part of the work plan, I guess what is the kind of timing between, because we're going to do a new budgeting process this year. What's the timing from doing that process and when you're going to be involved to kind of review it? Is it kind of ongoing? Is it going to be a post-mortem type thing, or kind of what's that look like? And is this kind of the result of us looking to do that continuous improvement on that budget process?
It is going to be a continuous improvement thing. For example, for an audit as complex as the budgeting process, we are going to be auditing this budget process for the first time. So we expect the audit to take approximately around 1,800 hours, and just based upon an estimate, because these processes have not been audited before, and these reports probably will come to you in Q2 of 2026. So this will be helpful for the budget discussion in 2020, end of 2026, but not before that. For the current year's budget, it may not be in time for that.
No, I appreciate that. And I just want to say I appreciate that not only are we implementing a revised budgeting process this year, but we're in fact already planning to take lessons learned already. So thank you for your diligence on that, recognizing the need for that. So the other question I had is around the cybersecurity audit and the SCADA controls. Is this in priority order? Like, are we, coming from a background in that world, just wondering, like, is this something that's quite critical for us to make sure that we tackle and address right away?
Absolutely. Thing is, we did a cybersecurity audit on maturity risk, assessing the maturity status of our city for overall cybersecurity. And then we also did a penetration testing earlier this year. So that report will come to the Audit and Finance Committee in end of August. That's what you're planned for. This is the phase 2 of that exercise. Now we have a lot of operational technology items within the city. First, we need to do an inventory of all the operational technology related items within the city. It can be our water and sewer, traffic signals, irrigation controllers, HVAC systems. We need to do an inventory and perform a risk assessment of where things stand, so that we can also prioritize that, in the risk rated, and prioritize that every year, so that we kind of do an operational technology related audit of each segment each year.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do have a few questions myself, based on some of the conversations you had and some of the numbers that you threw out there. So the budget process, we're going to be looking at the budget process. So I'm going to say I've been involved with many budget processes, and it's usually people sit around the table and come up with their list, whether it be a wish list or whether it be a tangible list based upon data. What I want to really see is right now, do we have any kind of process involved, period, versus I'm gonna say, you know, we got the dots on the map that says these are the roads that are done or need to be done, based upon, failure or fatigue modes of the roads, same with the infrastructure of the waterways, the sewer networks and everything else. Do we have any kind of process right now, or is this getting developed right now? Because I get the feeling you're saying it's 6 months to audit this process. Timelines, we start now, 6 months later, we're done in 2026, but now we're looking at a 2-year budget cycle for 26, 27, so, we're out of council, we're into a next election cycle before we even do any work in there on this table. So the question really comes to play, or 2 questions. One, do we have any process in place? I'm gonna say there is a process in place. Please describe that process. And then 2, we'll have to discuss on a bigger picture, this budget cycle for this year. Go to a 1-year cycle because, we got a lot of great work that's gonna come up that we can probably incorporate into a 2027 budget versus a 2026, 27 budget, that we can go into another budget cycle. So I'm gonna let administration comment on a lot of moving parts on that one.
So through the chair, yes, so we are implementing a new process this year called, and we're labeling it a service level budget. So to your point, what is our service level on road renewal? We will be bringing that to council at some time in September to fully describe what that service level is and then the costs associated. So it won't be a wish list budget. It will be a budget of approved service levels through council, and then a communication of what that cost is. Then at budget time in December, I guess what you would call the wish list is sort of our best. List B is things that council or administration has asked council to consider adding to the service level budget. So it can be stuff like we talked about today, new software that hasn't been approved by council yet. We've had a councillor ask us to consider spending more money on playgrounds. Those types of things will all get added into what you're referring to as the wish list budget. But our existing budget will be service levels that are already approved by council. This is the expense. Now, it is a 2-year budget this year. The second year is approved in principle, but every council meeting is a budget meeting. Every single one. Like every meeting, you guys can change service levels, add service levels. And we can decide to fund them next year through the budget cycle. We can fund them this year through a fund or a reserve. So there's always a chance to change and get better. There's not like hey, in this December, you're setting 2027 and we might as well all go home. Every meeting we have here has a budget impact, and that's why I sit here every meeting, so that I understand those impacts and I can raise issues if I feel like it's pertinent for council. Does that answer your question? And then in terms of the audit, I agree with the mayor. Good chance for us. We're going to go through this. Internal audit's going to be paying attention the whole time. They're going to help us identify where we miss stuff. Again, think of the base level controls. There's a lot of moving parts, and we're using good software, but we might have some hiccups there. They're going to be there kind of helping us get better and helping Jeff and his new team kind of be even better for the next year's process.
Thank you very much. No, I fully understand. My concern is really around those numbers, and specifically when you say service levels, I'm going to use an example. We got 2 light bulbs, one light bulb being in this room, another light bulb being at the runway. The light bulb in this room burns out. We don't really care about that service level. The light bulb at that runway in the Regina Airport burns out. We don't see the runway crash a plane. So there's different ways we can look at those service levels for sure. But thank you very much. It sounds like you're going down a good path, and there's a lot of new minds looking at things from outside, changing things. So that's a good thing. So I just want to make sure we don't handcuff ourselves or pigeonhole ourselves into a predicament that we can't say that we're actually making really good headway. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Perfect. Councillor Mancinelli?
just because we went in the camera and then came back out, do we have to have any kind of explanation in case there is someone actually watching the meeting that we didn't? Okay, I didn't. Perfect, thank you.
I will now ask the mover to close. Jamie. Mr. Ing. Nothing to add. Nothing to add? Okay, thank you. With no further questions from any members on this report, I will ask the clerk to call the vote.
Rob Willman,
Yeah, no, it's good to me.
in favor?
Sorry. Oh, in favor.
Councillor Slickleaf,
In favor.
Mayor Baczynski,
In favor.
Councillor Mancinelli,
In favor.
Jamie Ing,
In favor.
and yourself, Mr. Chair.
In favor.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Last item on the agenda for today. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Councillor Cleese? Any opposed? Thank you. Carried.